Satya, the ANC is under pressure to deal with Health Minister Zweli Mkhize. This after Daily Maverick journalists unearthed a 150 million rand contract given to Mkhize's associates. The minister allegedly signed off on the contract with digital vibes. Sanusha Naidu, a political analyst, joins me now from Cape Town for more on this. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Sanusha. The SIU investigation is underway. So would it be wise then for the Health Minister to appear before the ANC's Integrity Commission at this time?
Good evening, Faith, and to the viewers. I think it's almost a precedent that has been set in the ANC where you avail yourself, given the fact that these charges or alleged charges and implications that this has for the health minister and his integrity. He would himself will be able to say, I avail myself to appear before the Integrity Commission. And I think there's a slight interesting dynamic that in one of the newspapers today had indicated that the Integrity Commission is actually waiting for him to do that, to actually say, I'm going to come, I'm going to appear, I'm going to basically put my case forward and, of course, let the whole process around how the Integrity Commission operates and the dynamics around which it operates to unfold. So I think that's the big question there, is why hasn't he done it thus far?
Yeah. I mean, what can we deduce? I mean, speaking about Sunday articles, there's another Sunday article that say that the health minister actually met with regional leaders in Pietermaritzburg, and this was, of course, to highlight what's been said as a target, as seeing him as a potential threat to President Cyril Ramaphosa's candidacy for president during the elections. How true, what can we deduce from these allegations?
You know, Faith, we are entering such uncharted territory because everything now is about the kind of factional battle lines that exist within the party, the speculation, the conspiracy theories that are associated with that. I mean, just the whole question of this, the way it's worded as well, in such reductionist and confrontational terms, that there's a target on his back because he represents a threat to the presidency of Cyril Ramaphosa. All of this is becoming more a spectacular event of these kinds of lines that are being blurred. I think for me, the bigger challenge is what are we doing about how this is affecting the state of our nation and the fate of our nation, and more importantly, the questions about the money that we are seeing that has basically gone into a black hole and sunk into these kinds of vortex where. You know, you mentioned the whole question of service delivery. It's unconscionable that you can have these kinds of issues still circling and pervading our questions about whether this democracy is consolidating and is sustainable. So I think for me, we have to be careful because I think, again, we don't want to I mean, we're not saying don't pay attention to these questions about these internal fracturings that are happening and the kind of issues that are now overtaking our kind of consciousness in terms of what's happening in the ruling party, and more importantly, what's happening in terms of the run-up to 2022, the elective conference and the presidency. Will President Ramaphosa retain? Will he be able to sustain his power, etc.? The question here is, what do you do when a senior member of your ministry and your cabinet is caught in such a controversial set of issues? How do you deal with that? Because there is the other question here is, what does President Ramaphosa do? Because he appoints ministers at his prerogative.
So what should President Cyril Ramaphosa do at this point? I mean, there are different calls that are mounting for him to step aside. And one may say that it's completely unprecedented for a health minister during a time that the nation is trying to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic be implicated in any allegations of wrongdoing, particularly as we know how South Africans responded to the PPE scandal. So now we've got our very own, the health minister supposed to lead us through this pandemic, himself finding his fingers a little bit dirty.
Yeah, I think it's a tough choice for the president. I don't think the president can take his usual demeanor and approach of saying, you know, it's a measured approach. Let's see. Let me have all the evidence. Let me have all the kinds of issues at hand, because I think at the end of the day, the challenge is he needs to act very fast in terms of how this becomes a challenge between he's caught between the party and the state in this context. He can't apply the kinds of issues in the party in the way that he can apply it in the state and vice versa. And I think that's the dilemma for him. So it's not your usual kind of approach that he can take. He has to be decisive because this has serious implications in terms of what does this mean, also in setting a precedence for other individuals, other ministers who may also be implicated. And we do have to think about the Turkish tender with regard to to the floating energy ship and how that is also a parallel concern for the president.
So Parliament have rejected the Health Minister's snubbing of the Portfolio Committee, saying that he cannot hide behind a criminal case. But to play devil's advocate for a little bit here, was it indeed in his best interest to show up? And what recourse does Parliament have at this point?
I think Parliament has to make the president, the minister account. I'm not sure how the sub judice rule applies. I'm not a legal expert, so I'm very, very limited in that knowledge. But from my kind of layman interpretation of it, I think the challenge there is it's not necessarily a go-to strategy to say that it will basically create some kind of impression or prejudice or compromise an investigation. We don't have a court case right now. And I think this is about public information. This is about accountability. This is about the legislature and the oversight role. We've seen at the Zondo Commission how compromised at times our parliament has become, particularly not being able to execute its role in terms of its oversight capacity over the executive. And I think the chair of the committee has to be much more stronger and not allow other dynamics to influence the space. I think he has to be, the chair of the committee has to say to the minister, give us a little bit more time, because we need to understand what is the applicability of the sub judice rule, because it's not a default strategy, it's not a go-to strategy, but I think what we're beginning to see is the sub judice rule becoming a kind of, let's apply it because, it could compromise something. I think there were other things that the minister could have also been there to talk about the vaccine rollout, talk about the AstraZeneca issue, talk about all of the things that may not all be about the Digital Vibes contract.
Yeah, but we can imagine that at that point the writing will be on the wall and one can never avoid the pink elephant that is glaring in the room.
Absolutely. But I mean, the point is that he's still the health minister. He's still accountable. And if that was the only reason that he couldn't go there, because he was, the idea was that his legal advisors had advised him that this is going to be some kind of damage or some kind of compromise to an ongoing investigation that's happening within the SIU, then I think the problem is that we've got to be careful in terms of how these things are interpreted, where you need to account for other stuff. So I think at the end of the day, yes, it would have been an issue that would have been seized by the committee. I think they wouldn't have relented on it. But I think these are issues that need to be discussed in terms of the chair directing that portfolio committee.
Sanusha Naidu, we'll leave it there for this evening. Thank you so much, our political analyst, giving us the latest on that matter.